most of the time the data that you want isn't already nicely packaged and bundled like it was for, say, the global warming data within Quandl. If we look around the web, we can find all kinds of data. So in this case, I was just looking at football scores. Now, this is very readable for people, but there's lots of formatting information in there which is just a mess when you're trying to read just the data. I just want to know the home team, the away team, and the score. If I actually just download this page, 90% of the information is a mess. Here's the information that I got from that page. Some of it. And basically you can see, if you look around, that here it is. The score is 0-all. The home team is Sunderland. Away teams, Arsenal. So somewhere within all this text is the data that we want. And it's quite messy. Because if I'm telling the computer I want a systematic rule so that I can just go through the hundreds and hundreds of scores that are there and pick out the home team is Sunderland, the away team is Arsenal, the score is 0-all. That's what I thought I was going to look at. But then I remembered, well, I can just... And there are multiple ways that you can actually download a web page from within R. So, I didn't use many of them. But I remembered that if I just go to Excel, I can use it to download a web page. And it lets me click on a page and it extracts the data. And since I want to not waste time, I just go for the easiest way and give that a go. And doing that, it worked. So when I downloaded the data using Excel, I saved it in the incorrectly named My Scores, where for some reason I called it My Scores. So I can just load that data into BBC Scores. And if I just look at the top of BBC Scores, I can see the kind of data that I got. So here, because there was another game played since, so the top is no longer Sunderland Arsenal, but you can see I have Sunderland is the home team, it's 0-all and all that kind of stuff. What I did was actually change the names within the file using search replace. So I removed the spaces within team names. So instead of calling that West Brom, I called it West_Brom. Man City, I called man underscore city, Aston Villa. I called Aston underscore Villa, and so on. Just to tidy it up. Just to make it easier, so that when I try to work with this, I could say, separate this, looking at spaces, and I'll get closer to the data, get closer to where I want it to be. I use library tidyr just to load up tidyr, and then library dplyr, because they would be the packages that I wanted to use. So I began by just using the separate command. Remember, I had BBC scores. I want to separate this column, and I want to break it into home, score, away. Since the first team is the home team, that's the score, and that's the away team. Unfortunately, that doesn't seem to have worked. You know, it's broken Man City into Man City. 1-all has been broken into 1-1. So it's removed underscores, it's removed the minuses. I haven't been, perhaps, or maybe I need to be more specific. So next, I try the same command, but I tell it to separate. I set sep is equal to a space within quotation marks. Now, I could just do question mark separate to see what the help is, but I'll just go for trial and error. And then, I mean, if it takes too long, then I'll, look at the manual. Now that looks better, because the scores are still okay. Man City is still Man City. Now, when I use separate, it doesn't actually change the file. It doesn't change the data. So BBC scores is exactly the same. Having looked at this and kind of gone, no, that seems okay, then I can store that as a variable name, the output. So I'll just go temp1 is equal to that, and I can go head temp1 just to check again. So home is the home team, score is the score, away is the away team. Next, I do the same thing, but I'll separate it with the minus sign. What I mean is, I'm going to break the score column in the middle into home goals and away goals. And that seems to have worked. So I'll store that. In temp2, which I did in the background there. So now I have my home team, my away team, the goals that the home team scored, the goals that the away team scored. So now I have all the information that I wanted cleanly accessible. So next, I'm going to mutate. I'm going to mutate the data and introduce a new column called home win. So if the home team scores more goals than the away team, then we have a home win. Okay. So did that work? Well, in the bottom game, the away team won. So home win is false. In the next game, again, the home team lost. So home win was false. And in these two, the home team won 4-0. So home win was true. So in this way, we can just build up our data table. We can add, well, an away win column. We can look at both teams to score. So if home goals was greater than 0 and away goals is greater than 0, then both teams to score. Something like that. Whether there were 3 goals or more scored. All the bits and pieces, information that we might be interested in, we just keep adding fields to this table. And once we've done that, we have a far better sense of what happened, what's going on. We can look at a team and see, okay, we can ask questions. We can go, okay, Arsenal at home, are they doing better than away? Well, in order to do that, we want the away win. What we want to make the away win column, and then compare them. So here I'm just going to look at, say I wanted to look at how Arsenal did at home. Okay. Why is that not working? So we have Arsenal there. The first column is called home. So if I select temp 3, home is equal to Arsenal. Must resolve to integer column positions. I suppose I had to run into... Is it... Or... Ah, yeah, I got the wrong command. So, I think select is where I'd go in the name of a row or something like that. So I wanted actually, as you can see here, to use filter. So if I go filter home is equal to Arsenal, I just get all the Arsenal home games. Then what I'm going to do is look at how many home wins did Arsenal have. So I'm just going to add the basic data frame is temp3, and I just want to look at home wins. And okay, so what I did there was look at temp3 home win, and this is telling me that we had 135 home wins in the league, not for Arsenal. So I'm gonna set that, just the Arsenal games to be temp4. So Arsenal won 10 of their 17 home games, and say I look at Liverpool. I'll put that in temp5. I'll check, yes, that's the correct, it worked. And then I can count how many home wins for Liverpool, and there were 7. So that's just the start. We can just add more and more columns. So we just have home win now. We can add away wins. We can add both teams to score, how many goals were scored. We could look to add the halftime scores as well. That was hidden within that website. So here, we can't see what was the halftime score. Well, if we clicked on report, it says that the halftime score was 1-0. So we could extract somehow that information as well. We could see when both goals were scored. So we can just keep adding more and more information into our data frame, into our core knowledge, and then extract information from that. In fact, we could go to a website like soccerstats.com where they've already done that. They've already gone through the results and packaged them so we can see, Arsenal on average. In Arsenal games, there's been on average 2.63 goals. More than 3 goals happens half the time. But we can also look at just the home games and the away games. This site has lots of information, so we can see whether both teams scored, the home and away statistics, whether there were clean sheets, failed to score. Loads and loads of information is here. But of course, if we have our own system, we can look at adding as much data as we can get our hands on. We can ask the questions ourselves and know that we've actually got correct data. Finally, on this topic, since it's gone on a bit, we can also get football results using JSON. So within R, you can install the package JSON Lite, and that lets you interact with the various sources that are out there. And they produce, say, the football results in a, as it says, machine readable format. So that way, you don't have to worry about trying to clean up the data because the data might have been created more for human readability. But if you have just machine readable, these sites will just have the teams, the scores, and just numbers, so that you can easily, cleanly extract the data that you actually want, and then worry about seeing what you can do with it, as opposed to spending all your time trying to actually get it. So next, we want to get closer to machine learning. Once we have data, in this case I was just looking at football data, you could have stock market data, you could have your sales figures for your business, your profit loss, whatever. Then what are you going to do with it?